Good morning. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding the Chumash chapter 14, verse number 9, which is the second reading in the portion of Beshalach. Vayidav Mitzrayim Achleim, and Mitzrayim ran after them. Vayasigo Isam, they reached them, caught up to them. Chaynim alayam, they were encamped on the sea. All the horses of Pharaoh and all its chariots, and his whole army at Pihachides, the mouth of Chides of Nebat, which was before the deity of Tzephaim, Baal Tzephaim. Pari Hikriv and Pari came near Vayisub Bnei Yisrael, in the Israelites, Jewish people lift up their eyes. Behold, the Egyptians were running after them. Vayiru ma'oid, and they were frightened. Vayitzaku, and they cried out. Bnei Yisrael el Hashem, and the Jewish people cried out to God. Rashi's a pari hikriv. The Pharaoh drew near. The verse should have said karav. What means hikriv? He came near. The Pharaoh drew himself near and strove to go before them. His army, as it stipulated with them. Belev echad. Noise is written in a singular. On one account, like one man. They all came together. They were all united to get the Jews. Turned to the singular also means that, behold, Egypt advanced after them, denoting that they, the Israelites, saw the heavenly prince of Egypt. They saw that the Egyptian had a malach. They had a malach advancing from heaven to aid the Egyptians. That's why they were frightened, because they saw the angel of Egypt. It's Aku. So they grabbed the munah of the art of the ancestors. They prayed. That's the power of the patriarchs, the concept of davening, to pray. As it says, to the place where he stood before the Lord, that he prayed, that the Yid prays. Concerning Isaac, also, that's like Abraham said he prayed, Isaac said he prayed, and Jacob said he prayed. So that was what the Yidden did. They realized that they have the power of prayer, and they should always pray. Verse 11, Moshe said to Moshe and Kiana Midbar, is there no graves in the Mitzrayim? You took us into the desert to die. What did you do to us? To take out of Mitzrayim. Rashi says, is it because the want, namely, that there were no graves in Egypt in which to be buried, that you have taken us out here? Didn't we tell you Mitzrayim in Egypt? Lema chadal mimena. Leave us alone. V'navdas Mitzrayim. Let us serve the Egyptians. Because it's better for us to serve Egypt than to die in the desert. Rashi says, where do we see this statement that they told him in Mitzrayim? So that's in Shemais, before. It says, Yira Hashem Aleichem V'yishba. When Moshe Rabbeinu comes, and suddenly it becomes harder on them, they turn to them and like, God, judge what you're doing. You're coming here to make trouble. Mimaseinu. Rashi says, Mimaseinu, that we should die. Now she goes out and explains Mimisenu, that's a Mimusenu, how to translate it according to the grammar of the word. Moshe said to the people, Al tiro, don't be afraid. Atzvu, stand firm. And you'll see the salvation of God. Which will do for you today. Just like you saw Egypt today. You'll never see them again. Rashi says the way you have seen them, that is only today. It is only today you've seen them, but you shall no longer continue to see them. Hashem yilachem lachem, God will fight for you. Va'atem tachrishan, and you should remain silent. Rashi says yilachem lachem, for you. And we find that in different places in the Torah. When it says lachem, it means for you. And that completes the Chumash for today. We go to the Tanya of the day. We're in the middle of the chapter 20th of Tanya. The Rebbe now goes on to clarify this point of Achdus Hashem, the oneness of God, the unity of God. His explanation is brief. All the creation came about through the word of God. That's what it says. Asara Maimaris. 10 utterances. As we see with man, one word has no value whatsoever next to this power of speech. You were always told, maybe was told as a child, they have a certain amount of speech. But that's not true. Your speech is unlimited. As long as you live, you can, the Abishah gives you the capability to speak, you can speak. So what is one word to the power of speech? It's nothing. It is even less value. Now take the one word, not to the power of speech, to compare it to one's power of thought. Where does speech come from? You have to think to what you're going to say. So when you go to the power of thought of words, because you're thinking words, then you have, that's even greater. That the power of thought, your speech, your one word or your one statement is garnished. And next to the soul itself, not the thought, but where does thought come from? Where do I have the capacity of thought? Where do I have that capability of thought? Because my neshama has within it the capacity and the capability of thought. So to the thought of my neshama, my one word, one statement is garnished. Garnished of garnished. Nothing of nothing. From where both thought and speech derive. One word, or even many words, is certainly a non-entity. We all can comprehend one word to all my speech that I speak, one word to the thought of my speech, one word to where my thought and speech comes from my soul is garnished, non-existence. How much more so in comparison to God? So if you understand it by yourself, then for surely you comprehend it when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch. When you say God created the world through speech, even 10 utterances, Hasara Maimaris. What is 10 utterances to God? Garnished. So the whole power of creation is garnished to the essence of the Eibishter. The Eibishter, God, exists because he exists. It doesn't exist for you or for anybody. Really, the truth is, even to call him a creator is a limit, is a limitation. Eibishter is not there to create. Creation comes from him. So to my mother's 10 utterances, God created the whole world. The Gemara, the Mishnah says he could have created the world in one utterance, one word, one letter. Truth is, Chassidus tells us the whole world stands on one letter, letter Aleph. Alufei Shalaylam, God, who is infinite. So in comparison to the 10 utterances that God created the world, who is to God, who is infinite, his word, which represents his creative and animated powers, is a totally non-existence. So now you understand that the whole world to God is non-existent. So all this mishagas that's going around in the world today is garnished. The Eibishter, it's all garnished. Non-existence. And again, the only reason why it does exist, because he wants it to exist. What follows is a lengthy exposition of this concept, which carries over into the next chapter. The Alter Rebbe goes into length of this because he wants us to comprehend it. And the more we can comprehend it, the more we understand what Ein Sof is, the more we understand what means Yichud, unity of God, the more we understand the oneness and uniqueness of God. And we have an obligation as humans, Ladas Hashem, to know God. It's an obligation, it's a mitzvah according to the Rambam, to know the Eibush, to be Yadaita Hashem Elokecha. You shall know your God, Lord your God. So we can know God through this concept and through understanding it. For the beginning, for the coming into being, all the upper worlds, and all the lower worlds, everything is mi'ayin liyash. Even the Atzilus, the most spiritual world, is also creation by God. Because God's above Atzilus selfness. Atzilus is limitation. The Eibishter, everything is a yesh. Because God's infinite. And even the world of Atzilus is a finite entity. The Chayus and their existence. That's where they sustain. So that nothing, not the upper world, not the lower world, not anything in this world, should return to nothingness. Ibishtin needs to. It's the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the word of God, when it says that the word of God is in this world, is the word of God is constantly in this world. Constantly saying, let there be earth. Constantly, so to say, saying, let there be light, etc. Because if not, they would turn to nothingness. As they were before creation. What was the world before creation? All world was nothing. Nothing. Not destroyed, nothing, not existent. So unlike the product of human craftsmen, which is left undisturbed, remain in exactly the same state and shape as it was when before it left the hands of the craftsman. Right? So a person takes a tree, takes wood, turns it into a vessel, a cup, and now, wow, it's unbelievable. It's craftsmanship, it's unbelievable. It's truly a beautiful thing. He took a piece of dust, a piece of wood, he turned it into a plate, turned it into a cup. But after he created this, he sort of reformed this cup, he walks away from the cup is in existence, doesn't need it constantly there to keep it going. That's the problem. We make the mistake of the creation of man or the formation of man to God's creation. And that's where we have to make to understand the difference. Man forms something from nothing, something from something. The Eibishter formed something from nothing. If you wouldn't have a tree, you couldn't make it into a cup. So you need the tree to make it into, to use your imagination and form it into a cup, a tree, a seat, whatever you take, a wood and a table, whatever it might be. So therefore, since I took of something to something, I don't need to keep it making it something. I made it into took the tree to something. I formed it into a cup, a table, a chair, whatever I did. And now the chair goes on. The chair stays a chair without me. Were this power to seize, but by the Eibishter, he created something from nothing. So when you understand that, it's not just I create something from something. God didn't create something, but he created something from nothing. Therefore, this something needs to have, so to say, this nothing that made it into something constantly. And you don't have that anything in creation. Even the creation of a child is ultimate. The child lives on, Baruch Hashem. And he has its own existence. And it doesn't need the father and mother anymore for its existence. But that's not the Eibishter's creation, because everything that humans create is something from something. Were this power to cease, all creation would revert to nothingness. This force which animates and sustains the existence of all creation. Ein ela devad Hashem. What is the force? Is the devad Hashem, the word of God. V'ruach piv, and the spirit of the breath of his mouth. And meluvash ben, which is in everything in creation. Mashal, again, so this is the analogy that illustrates from the soul of the human being. Da b'diberecha, when somebody says one word. I said one word. Shedib is elevadi klal mamish. This one word that I said is nothing. I feel like I've been close enough, even to the, is nothing compared to his articulate soul, the power of speech as a whole. Which is the soul middle garment, the organ of expression, namely the faculty of speech. Speech is a wonder. It's one of the wonders of creation, you should know, to be able to speak. So Chas Shalom, we realize some people cannot speak. They have a struggle with speech. Then they realize, what is the wonder of speech? The Eibishter created that my breath comes through 5 articulate things in my mouth, and now I can form words, letters, words. Wonder of creation. So you have the capacity of speech. Now the Eibishter created the middle realm, which gives the capability of speech. And I push out to thank God every day that I can speak. The soul has three garments: thought, speech, and action, of which speech is the middle one, with the action being the lower of it, and thought the higher. One word has no value in comparison to this faculty of speech. Since this faculty, the capability of speech, is unlimited. As long as I am alive, I can speak and speak and speak and speak and speak. And next to infinity, one word has no value whatsoever. The actual practice, there's a limit to the number of words one can speak, because ultimately, how much, as long as I live. However, this is only because the physical organs involved in speech have a limit functional ability. So therefore, ultimately, one day, the mouth that speaks will stop speaking, but not the capacity of speech. The soul capacity of speech is limitless. It doesn't have the mouth to be able to speak. But that's a technical difficulty, a technical issue. Doesn't have to do with the soul. The soul can speak and speak and speak and speak. And surely now to the higher level of the inner aspect of speech, because what's the inner aspect of speech? It's machshava. Machshava dibur. Machshava is the pnimi. In Chassidus, in Kabbalah, you always have the concept of pnimi and chitzoni, the inner aspect and the outer aspect. So the inner aspect of speech is my thought, and the outer aspect of speech is my speech that I'm speaking. So you can understand that my outer concept of speech, which one day will come after 120 years, will stop speaking, is nothing compared to my thought of speech, which one day also, since my thought in my brain will also come to an end, but still, in comparison to speech, the physical speech, to my thought, nothing. So we have actual speech, to my capable speech, to my thought of speech. My thought, my speech comes from my capacity of thought, the faculty of thought, which is the source of speech and its life force. So since thought is higher and closer to the soul than speech, this one word is surely no value in comparison to the thought of speech. It's no value in comparison to speech itself. There's no value in comparison to thought of speech. And now you don't have to give an example. You don't have to give it goes without saying that the word has nothing when you compare it to the essence and the entity of, as opposed to the garments of the soul, to the soul itself. So thought, speech, and action is the garment of the soul. That means the capabilities within the soul, there is thought, speech, and action, but it needs to garment it into a physical entity, into a brain that thinks, into a mouth that speaks, and to a hand and a physical body that does action. What is one word to speech, to thought of speech, and what is one word to the soul that in comparison to all this is all unlimited? Speech, thought, and speech may come to an end one day in the physical world, after 120 years, but it will never come an end in the soul itself. The capability of speech in the soul is unlimited. Which the soul has all these faculties of machshava, of chachma, bina, das, etc. How does the soul think? Through words. Lashon Kodesh, that's the way the soul thinks. Through the holy tongue. That's the makeup of the neshama. The makeup of the neshama is Esses Sfiris. What are the Esses Sfiris? They're all Hebrew letters. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Chachma, Bina, Das. All these are letters, which are words. Okay, the godly words. That all that comes out, all the capability of my thought in my mind and the speech in my mouth, all come out from these esakeichas nefesh, from these 10 powers of the soul, which ultimately come out, derived from the letters of thought that are enclosed in one's speech when it's uttered. So since all of man's thoughts are either of an intellectual or emotional nature, they all come out from the soul, from the powers of my soul. I sometimes get heated thought. I sometimes get cool thought. I sometimes have emotional thought. I sometimes have intellectual thought. I sometimes have all the attributes, the way I think, that's the where it comes from my keiches and from one of the 10 attributes of the soul. Therefore, a person should always think in a chesed manner, in a manner of kindness. Should never have negative thoughts and the power of severity, because it all comes from my soul powers. Since all man's thought either from intellectual, emotional, they derive from the soul's intellectual, emotional faculties. When one speaks, the letter of his thoughts descend to a lower level. That's what's happened. So when I take my koyach nefesh of chesed, for example, or gevura, and I bring it out ultimately in my thoughts. That's why trachkut. You have to express your neshama in an aspect of trach good, think good. Because the way you're going to think, you're going to express your soul. That's ultimately the way you're going to levush nefesh. You're going to first think good. That means you're going to express your neshama of chesed. You're going to express the soul, the kindness of your soul. Is going to speak the kindness of your soul, and you're going to do kindness. So you're going to clothe yourself in the attribute of chesed of your neshama. That's why it's called levushe hanefesh. It's called the garments of the soul. The soul has 10 qualities, and I should clothe myself with the wisdom of the soul, with the understanding of the soul, the chesed of the soul. Because ultimately thought is also dibur, because you think through oisies, you think through letters, like words. Like when you speak through words and letters. You think through words and letters. In your thought, they're much more refined, they're more spiritual, and they're more refined. And the truth is, that's how you understand now in Chassidus, because we end over here now, that's how you understand in Chassidus how important your thought is. Because if your thought that is edel, is more refined, you do it correctly, it means you have good thoughts. That's why God begs a person, Chassidus begs a person to think Torah. That a person should not have an empty thought. Your mind should never be empty. There's no such thing as emptiness in your mind. You're going to think either good, or you're going to think bad, or nothingness is also bad. Because the truth is, if I can refine my mind to be able to think godly things and not to think negative things, then I can have because ultimately everything comes out from my mind. So if I can think only positive things and I can think godly things, I will speak godly things and say good things. And ultimately I will do good, not do bad. The second I empty my mind out from godliness, the second I empty my mind out from these letters, godly letters, Torah, I empty my mind. There's no such thing as an empty vacuum. I put something else in my mind, because one of the things that constantly thinks. So now, what are you thinking about? What are you hearing? What kind of words are you hearing? Are you hearing the lashon hara? Are you hearing negative, etc., etc.? So it's all ultimately the way I think, and I should always connect my neshama, my godly soul, especially chachma of my godly soul, the wisdom of my godly, the understanding of my godly soul, the knowledge of the godly soul, the chesed of the godly soul, even the gevura of the godly soul, which to push away evil in a positive way, I should clothe myself. My thought should be always clothed with that. My more spiritual aspect of myself should always be garmented my godly soul. And that's why we say in Tanya, we started in Tanya, that the godly soul wants to be clothed only, he wants to be filled these garments. My godly soul wants to fill these garments of thought, speech, and action. He wants to be the one who the garments are totally involved with that, with thought, speech, and action of Torah mitzvahs. Because then I will have no space for any negative thought. I will have no space for any, and automatically, if I have no space for any negative thought, because I only think the words of Torah and words of good, then I have no space for any negative speech, because I speak what I think. And if I ultimately speak and think only good things, I won't have time to do any action, because that ultimately also comes through thought and speech. And this completes the Tanya of the day. Beautiful Tanya of the day. Today is the 12th day of the month, which is chapter 66, 67, and 68. If I do those 3 chapters, I'll do the chitas of the day. May Shem, see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Continue to learn the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful and beautiful day.